Hey guys, right as I was hitting the record button, this popped up in my lap from the floor. So Miss Kitty was wanting to be in the video today. Apparently, she wasn't getting enough attention. So I am coming to you today with a Dollar Tree haul. It's actually two different Dollar Trees over 2 different days. This week has been a busy one. I have gone to therapy Tuesday, Wednesday. Today's Thursday, and I had a doctor's appointment to get my staples out of my knee. And then tomorrow I have therapy again. So when you go to town, and when I say town, that's because I live in the country, and anytime we need to go anywhere, it's to town. So that's what we call it when we want to go to a store, is going to town. Like the olden days when they rode their horse and buggy into town, that's what we do. It's just not horse and buggy, and it's just not once a month like it was then. Now it's every day. So before this video's over, I had another short story to tell you. The day I got out of the hospital on Friday, not this Friday, but a Friday, a couple of weeks ago, and the Monday after I got out of the hospital on was it? Let me see. Yeah, I got out of the hospital on Friday, and then on Monday, I wasn't the first Monday; it was the second Monday. That's what it was. That's why it seemed like so long. Um, we got the kids off to school, and I let Chico, my little Chihuahua buddy, go out in the backyard like he always does. And somehow he managed to get out of the fence, under the fence somewhere. We don't know. But I heard my Bassett Hound in the backyard just carrying on something awful. And I looked at my husband and I said, Chico's gotten out of the fence. Maggie's telling on him. And then I realized how much she was howling and crying. And it just sent chills down my spine. And instead of going out the back door like he always does to check, he went straight out the front door. And a couple of seconds after he did that, he came back through the front door and he said, Chico got hit by a car. And I started screaming. I didn't realize I was screaming until my grandson, who had stayed home from school with a stomach ache that morning, came out of his bedroom and he was shaking me. He had me by the arms and he was shaking me and he was saying, Gigi, what? Gigi, what's wrong? Gigi, what's wrong? And I was screaming no over and over and over. I couldn't stop screaming. And my husband, after he said that, he went back out the front door. And about that time, I was trying to tell Lane why I was screaming. He came back through the door with him. And he grabbed a towel and wrapped him in it. And he handed him to me. And instead of saying, let's go, we've got to go to the vet, he just went out the back door. And I couldn't figure out why he went out the back door. And then I looked down at Chico and I couldn't see him breathing. I couldn't see him moving. And I started telling Lane, he's dead. Lane, he's dead. And we stood there looking at Chico wrapped in the towel, bleeding from his mouth. And about that time, my husband came back through the door, and when he opened the door and slammed the door, he shut the door really loud. Chico's eyes fluttered, and that's when I realized he wasn't dead. And I started screaming at my husband, "We've got to go. We've got to get to the vet. We've got to get to the vet," because we live 30 miles from the vet. And, you know, when a dog's bleeding from their mouth and they don't have any injuries on their body, that means internal injuries, and you don't have 30 miles to go. So my husband said, "I have to go to work." And I said, "I don't care about work. We have to get him to the vet." And I just kept telling him over and over. He works part-time for a friend of his at a hardware store out here in this little town where we live. And it's not like Drew couldn't open the store himself. It's just that Steve works there part-time, and on the days he works, Drew doesn't have to come in, at opening time. Opening time was not in my mind, and I didn't care whether the store was there when we got back or not. All I cared about was my baby and getting to the vet. So after starting to tell this story, I realized that it had been 6 days since my knee surgery when this happened. I don't know how I know that, but I've counted it up before now, and with the dates, I know it was 6 days. So I had not thought about a walker. I was standing in the middle of the living room floor with Chico in my arms pacing, and I had been doing this for several minutes, and here it was, 6 days after having knee replacement surgery. And when my husband said, "Okay," I started running to the truck. And it never occurred to me, not once, that I had just had knee replacement surgery. It wasn't until we got to the animal hospital and I started to get out of the Yukon that I realized. Now, I got in the Yukon with him in my arms. No hands, Mom. Look, no hands. Yeah, that was me. And it wasn't until I started to step out of the truck and I realized that I couldn't without dying that I remembered that I had just had knee surgery. So my husband came around and he took Chico and he ran him into the vet. And they met him at the door and, took off running to the back, with him. And then he came back to get me, and I hobbled in because by this time I wasn't a rock star anymore. My adrenaline had stopped pumping and I needed help. So we hobbled in, and a few minutes later the vet called us back to the back, and he looked really sad, and he said, "I want you to know that Chico has a head injury. He doesn't have any other wounds on his body. And, what we worry about is swelling on the brain." And I knew that. And he said, we can give him medicines to control the swelling. And by the way, he had had 3 seizures on the way to the hospital. So I knew things didn't look good. And he said, and another medication to control the seizures. And he said, the prognosis is not good. He said, there's a very, very slim chance that he's going to make it. And he said, but I want you to know that we're going to do everything we can to make that happen, to make him well. So we left there and we came home, and I spent that day crying. I spent the next day crying. It's pretty easy after having major surgery and being cooped up and not being able to move around much to get depressed. And not only did I have that, but I had other things that, I had to be depressed about. I tried to be big, and I got by. I had to go to therapy, but instead I got really sick. And so, between the knee surgery and Chico and other things that were happening, I got depressed. I had a couple of days where I had panic attacks all day, and then I got better. And I got a chance to go to therapy, and I got a chance to go see Chico. And it was sad. He didn't look normal. He didn't act normal. And he was still very sick. But this was on Thursday, and he had been in the hospital since Monday. And the vet told us that if everything went okay that night, that we could probably take him home on the next day. And so the next day we got Chico, and while I was at therapy, and this was my second visit, but my first day of actual therapy. And while I was there, Steve surprised me by going to get Chico. So when he picked me up, he had Chico in his arms. So we came home, and I spent the rest of that day and the next day and the next day and the next day. I'm not sure how many days, but I spent those days holding Chico. And Chico got well. He's not 100%. He doesn't kiss me like he used to. He's still having issues with knowing where he's supposed to go to the bathroom. And he's on a steroid, so he's eating so much and he's drinking so much, and he has to go to the bathroom every 5 minutes, it seems, every time his feet hit the floor. So if he's down on the floor for more than, 10 minutes, he's already gone outside and came back in and gone twice again. So he doesn't know to go to the back door like he had for years. And so we're going to have to work on that. But other than that, he acts almost the same. And it's been, Monday will be 2 weeks. So it's amazing to me. It was a miracle. Things don't happen like that very often. I've had several dogs get hit on this stupid road that we live on that's in the country, but people think the speed limit is, 75 when it's 35. I've lost several dogs on this road. Not because I don't keep them pinned up because I have a fenced-in backyard, but because dogs sometimes don't want to be fenced in. And the ones that I've had that have gotten killed on this road were all little dogs that somehow managed to dig under, find a place where, what am I trying to say? a mole, that's it, had gone across the yard and made the ground soft and, made it easy to push under. It was always something. And so they'd all gotten out for one reason or another, and that was the reason that, they got hit by a car. But I've never had one live long enough to get him to the vet, much less one as small as Chico. And he got hit in the head. He had one mark on his head where where the skin was split open, and he has a fractured skull. I mean, that's it. How can a Chihuahua that weighs less than 5 pounds come in contact with a moving car and live when he was hit in the head? I mean, how is that possible? I think God knew that Chico wasn't done, and that wasn't the time for something like that to happen to me, because I still needed him. I had too much on my plate to lose my baby. That would have just been too much. And I prayed the entire way to the vet's office. I prayed for days, and my prayers were answered. And now, I think I said at the beginning of this video that I had a Dollar Tree haul, and I do, but I'm going to have to do the Dollar Tree haul in another video because I spent this one talking about Chico. The reason is because I have him laying here beside me, and I want to show him off to everybody, because if you've watched any of my previous videos, you've seen him before, and I want to show you that he's almost well. So I have to wake him up because I made him a bed here beside me, and he's falling asleep. Come here, love. Come see Mama. I want to show you. Come here. I know you were warm in the blanket. Here's my baby. Yes, that's Mama's baby. He's still got a little bit of an issue about how he holds his head. But other than that, my baby's still here. Oh, it's a Mama's baby. Can you hold your ears up? Can you hold your ears up? You can't perk up when you're on camera, can you? Not when Mama's holding you like this. Well, sit down like that. Put your arms out. Sit down like that. Can you sit down like that? Can you put your ears up? No. He's also developed another problem. When he's in my lap, he's a vegetable. If I put him on the floor, he acts like nothing happens. He doesn't run yet, but he walks really fast. But when he's in my lap, he acts like he's not gonna live for another, minute. I know. Shake those kisses off. Shake them off. You don't need those things. Yeah, you don't need those things. No, you don't. Isn't this so amazing? Yes. Chico's actually gotten heavier. I can tell. My husband commented on it first. So we'll see when we take him back to the vet how much he weighs. But the steroids and the really, really good diet that he's eating has caused Chico, who has been the same weight his whole life, to put on a pound or two, I think. He doesn't have a follow-up. The vet said he was going to be fine. But he said in a week or so, I would like to see him. If you could just drop by sometime during the day with him. He said, I would really like to see, how he is, in another week or so. See? Now he lick his own feet, but he doesn't lick me anymore. He licked my arm, sometimes my hand, but he used to lick me and lick me and lick me and lick me right in the face every chance he got. See, now he's licking Mama's arm. And that's my buddy. Chico's my boy. Well, this has been 20 minutes that I've rattled on, and I guess I've answered my own question about whether or not I could get on here and make a video without it being a haul video. And if I've got something to talk about, I certainly can. But if you've watched any of my videos in the past where I've talked about my animals, you knew how I felt about my dogs. And and my cat, and I just wanted you to see Chico and see that as bad as things get, see, there are those ears, that sometimes you get to see a modern day miracle just when you need it the most. So, take care all, and I hope someday you get to see a miracle of your own. I'm going to get off here. Take care. Lots of love. Bye.